Well, hello and welcome to the Empowered Living Show. And if you haven't noticed, it looks like the show is being hijacked because today is the 1 year. It's hard to believe it's been a year, Regina.
Amazing.
I can't believe it either.
My goodness, it's been a year that you've been doing these.
Yes, it has.
Well, the show has just massively grown in popularity, and I think it's funny sometimes when you look at where you are today. It's always interesting to go back to see kind of how it all started. And I can remember when you first started, there was lots of concern about you trying to set up your own home studio and get your light. I mean, what was that like for you?
It was cool at first because I was the director, I was the producer, I'm hair and makeup, I'm everybody. And I'll never forget the day I ordered my green screen. Of course, I'm not great with the details all the time. So that green screen was probably 5 times bigger than I needed. And I couldn't even open it by myself. I wasn't long, my arms weren't long enough to open it alone. So we opened it. It had to stay in the family room because that was the only room big enough. And, overcoming all those challenges. And I have to say, I'm so glad that Andy Hall is here today, because for me, he was one of those early people that at the right moment, a text came rolling through one day when I was fighting with that green screen. And Andy Hall sent me the most beautiful text, maybe because he recognized in some of my emails how just overwhelmed I felt. And he said, Charlie and I are here for you. Whatever you need, if you need guests, if you need support, whatever we can do for you. And that text is one of those things in the beginning that was a difference maker. So I'm glad you're here to help celebrate today, Andy.
Oh, thank you, Regina. It's just an absolute honor and privilege to be here. And I can't believe it's a year. It's just stunning. Where has that 12 months gone? And one of the things that's just blown me away is just how you've just gone into this and embraced this, and the quality of guests that you get, just people that I'm not familiar with and aware of, that the people that you just seem to attract, Regina, and the quality of the show has just gone from, from great to greatness, without a doubt. It's just so good. The quality of guests just blow me away.
Well, when the idea for an empowered women's show came up, it seemed very natural that we should have it. And then Holly and I were talking about who would be the perfect host, right? And I remember Regina saying that she wanted to be the Oprah of Empowered Living.
Do you guys, Holly and Paul, do you guys remember that day? That was May.
I do.
Do you remember May 16th, 2020? That was the original air date for Future Cast. And it was in those comments because, Paul, I don't know if you remember, at the end of the broadcast, you casted a vision for Empowered Living, and you were mentioning it's going to be a lifestyle channel and we can have this show and this show. I just very innocently typed in the comments, I'm going to be the Oprah of EL. Just started kind of, I can see that, Regina, I see that for you. There were 4,000 comments. And then the very next day on that Sunday replay, I logged onto Facebook to listen while I was cleaning my office. And Holly, you saw me on and you said, hey. So I said, hey. Yeah. And then Paul, you jumped in and you said, you typed in, oh, it's so great to have the Oprah of EL joining us. And my eyes, how did he know that I typed that? 4,000 comments. And I never understood how you guys caught that comment from the original broadcast. I had no idea.
Well, I read the comments. I go back and I love reading the comments because it lets us know kind of what's working and what isn't working.
Yeah.
And Holly and I were having dinner after that, and I remember just saying to her, like, Regina, like,
be really good.
Regina would be like
really
perfect.
good.
Like she'd be like perfect for that.
Yeah.
Who else would we pick? You were the natural pick. So tell us, I remember, seeing kind of the guests begin to kind of come in, and who, Andy would kind of give me the run of who the upcoming guests were for all the shows. And one time I looked down, I see Dallas Cowboy Chick.
Yes. What?
Like what? The Dow? No way she got the Dow. How did you get the Dow? How did you land that?
By asking. There's no
Wow.
trick, no magic trick. I didn't know anyone. I woke up on a Sunday morning in October, and Heather had already prepped me for when your shows, you and Roddy, all of your shows were going to run out. And she's like,
Yeah.
here's when you need a show. And I was already sort of sweating about this, like, oh my gosh, where are these guests going to come from? And I knew inside the community, we have a lot of amazing empowered women. And I also wanted some guests that might pop, who might be fun just to have. And if I really had to reach and stretch for a guest, who might that be? Well, Roger and I, many years ago, we discovered the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders making the team show. Please tell me.
Oh yes,
That.
I saw that show. Awesome.
Andy, have you watched that in the UK?
No.
Oh, it's
I
awesome.
haven't seen that.
And you know, Paul,
It's
they
incredible.
remind me of your lesson called World Class.
Oh, yeah.
And you talk about the Pike's Place Fish Market in Seattle. And it's almost this idea of who needs a world-class fish market? Who needs world-class cheerleaders? But they embody excellence and dedication and commitment. And Roger and I fell in love with that show years ago. And so I just thought, gosh, they're the spirit of our community. Wouldn't it be fun to have them? Sunday morning, I'm up. I typed them a little message on the contact form on the website. I can't even fit all the details in there. And a couple days later, someone had responded.
Wow.
That
And
is
I
incredible.
I just asked. And it was amazing to be, and I got to film them in studio when I came to Jupiter back in November. And I had 2
Yeah.
days in the studio with Andrew Manzano. And I was so happy that Andrew was there with me because I was so nervous. And it was just so much fun. And afterwards, they were so lovely and so gracious. And it was everything I thought it was going to be. And I got them because the power of asking. That's all. No magic.
That is what an incredible story. What incredible truth, right? That
Yeah.
you ask and you receive. I mean, and you look, I mean, if you don't go and take the shot, you're certainly going to miss the shot, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a lesson that's a story I love sharing because it's just simply the power of asking. And when you think about those names of some of the other shows, I just asked them, you know, and I thought even with Teresa Scanlon, even though Teresa had been emceeing the IMC, we had never met. She and I had never chatted. We took a picture once. She would never remember who I am. And I thought to myself, if she says no, or I don't get her, I'll just ask Paul to get her. And she wanted me. And with any of the guests that I thought you might know, I'll say, oh, Paul, I'll get Paul or Heather to call them. And everybody just said yes. And that's just the power of asking.
You know, I think that's a good point because you really have, I mean, I don't think Holly or I or Andy have been involved in like the running of this. Like this is like you took it and you owned it from beginning to end. Your background, everything, the production, the messaging, everything. I mean, you've done it, and it really is the vision of what I wanted empowered living to be. And I want the empowered living community to be. Is I want superstars like you in our community to take ownership of the community and add value to it. And I'm always amazed, but never surprised, I guess, when I look at who we have in this community. And you've had, you know, people that, like you mentioned, that people would not normally know who these people are, right? They're not the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, right? They're not a, you know, former Miss America, but they're a member of our community. And then you highlight their story and you watch the show and you're like, oh my, I had no idea this person lived that life.
I hear that often. People will talk to me and they'll be like, I saw so-and-so on the show and I saw their name on Facebook, or I see their face. I know they're in the community. And I had no idea that was their story. I mean, I take one of the most recent ones, Mary Britton, who I just met at the mastermind group. Paul, she and I ended up in the same results mastermind group. And that evening at your house, we're going around the circle, even the guys, we're all telling our couple minute stories. And when Mary mentioned that her mother committed suicide, and this was 1979, when you just didn't talk about that, and both of us were amazed at how that's still the story today. and the work that she does in behavioral health as a nurse. Her whole life story kind of led her to do this work. And she was so open about this story. And Mary's one of my favorite people in the world because she's just so lovely. And you look at her, and this is the power of not knowing who's in the community. You look at Mary and you're like, she's lovely. She's sweet. And you're like, that's her story, that at 9 years old, her mother killed herself. And for years, the family didn't share that story with Mary and her younger sister, who was 6 at the time. And they always had a knowing that something must have happened like this. And to have this come out in her 20s, to go on to be a nurse working in behavioral health, that's just the power of the story. And we just have so many stories like that. Lily from our mastermind group, who had been sexually assaulted repeatedly as a child. You just never know what someone's going through. And it's an honor. It makes me tremble sometimes knowing who's coming up and knowing, okay, we're going to be speaking about this. I've got a show coming up with a woman who's stage 4 breast cancer. And I'm on the phone with her and I am sobbing. I could not hold myself together on the phone for this one. And she's got an incredible story. So you never know who's out here just in our everyday life. We see these names on Facebook and it's easy to forget that there might be something going on in their lives. Let me mention Barbara Britt for just a second.
I love Barbara.
She had me laughing on the phone so hard when she talked about the story, but she's another one. So when she was in the 5th grade, she could not read. And one day by accident, she ran across a woman who she met. Her mother owned a business or did some sewing and some ironing on the side. And a woman walked in their house to pick up her items. And she and Barbara started talking. That summer, that lady that Barbara met by chance taught her how to read. And it changed.
Wow.
And Barbara is just one of these people that's so fun loving. She, in college or after college, she became a cheerleading coach. She had never cheered. She became a dance coach. She never danced. She was a swim coach who couldn't swim. They're having the most fun conversation. She's just a go-getter. She has a high spirit in this community, and it's an honor to know her and all the women that I've been able to interview.
That is
I could
so
go on.
awesome.
So many.
Yeah, I mean, you never know somebody's story, but they're a part of this community for a reason, right? I mean, there's an energy signature that brings us all together for sure. I mean, we're not all part of this, community by accident. It's not, there's no such thing as chance.
I think what's also just so powerful to think about is as you, Regina, are drawing these stories out of these women, just not knowing, but knowing that there are people who are listening to that specific show who needed to hear that story because they're going through something. And it's like, you never know who you're connecting with, but you're connecting with exactly the right people you need to be
That's a
connecting
great
with.
point. That's so true, right?
It's a powerful point. I mean, Diane Burton, who's in this community, when she talks about going through her weight loss journey. So imagine.
Unbelievable.
Isn't it unbelievable? And she did a TEDx talk, Bullied to Bold. And as a child in the 50s and 60s, when it was unheard of for children to be overweight, she battled this at that point in her life. And her story is tremendous. And then she connected me to 2 women, Sue McGray, who, when she was a teenager, this broke me down on the phone as well. So Sue's a teenager. Her baby sister, Anne, was run over by the school bus.
Oh my gosh.
And I can just remember the moment that she's talking about this. I knew she was going to talk about this. She sent me her book and it just hit me. I remember being 14, 16 years old, and I have an older sister and a younger sister. And I'm thinking about your baby sister was run over by the school bus. And she's lived this life, Sue, and she's an incredible woman. She's just an incredible lady. And Julianne Nagel, who was run over, trampled by her horse 3 times.
Yeah.
And is alive to talk to us today about it. And so Diane, because of her experience, she referred me those 2 wonderful women, Sue and Julianne, who I will never forget meeting. I think I wake up sometimes in the middle of the night thinking about all these stories, thinking about someone like Joe Whipp, who
Yeah.
was attacked in her late teens, who now is one of the biggest advocates for human trafficking.
Yeah.
And right, Andy, I mean, you know Joe, and you know some of her story, and that's her pet project is this human trafficking.
Yeah.
And when she told me about the human trafficking that happens at the Atlanta airport, I got shaken up by that. And I said, Joe, that's my home airport.
Yeah.
I have a million happy memories.
Yeah.
Coming, going. I've been in the ladies' room a million times there. And it never dawned on me that that is a hub for human trafficking. Well, I'm blown away by women.
Yeah, it's incredible. You know, I think as people watch you do this show, they look at you and think, well, you know, it's easy, right? Because you make it look so easy. You're just naturally gifted. And you are, but you've also, because if you go back and watch your early shows to now, there's there's a confidence and a level of certainty that you have now that you've developed. How long did it take you to start feeling really like, because now I don't think that there would be anybody that you would be intimidated by interviewing. How long did it take you to feel confident and certain in your own skin and self?
Still a work in progress. I would say maybe there was somewhat of a turning point in the spring. And this show started last October, so we're a year in. I think it really took the spring, and it took making mistakes. That's what it took. I had to continue to fail forward. So one of my great embarrassing stories, it's sort of embarrassing. We moved the green screen upstairs to my office. I've redone everything at the first of the year. And my first interview upstairs was Tana Amen. Now,
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big interview.
Right, it's a big deal. I mean, Andy, you worked on the Brain Revolution with Dr. Amen and his team. I mean, it's a world-class deal we got going on with the Amens. And I remember growing up watching Daniel Amen on PBS, Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. I watched that 100 times. And so I'm sitting there, I'm in the Zoom room, and pops up on the screen, Daniel and Tana Amen are in the waiting room. Now I knew it wasn't Daniel, but that's the name on there. And I see his name, and for some reason I'm like, and then I open, and then I press OK to admit her from the waiting room, and I start sobbing. She comes on smiling, she's waving, she looks stunning, and I just start sobbing. And she goes, people have that reaction to Daniel, but never to me. And I said, I am such a fan of Dr. Amen's work. I just, Paul, watched you interview both of them on one of your Saturday shows. I had been going through her book. I'd read quite a bit of her story. And to have her there, stunning and wonderful and so sweet, I just couldn't hold back the emotions. And she couldn't have been nicer. She goes, oh, it's no big deal. I said, can I take just a second? I'm dabbing the tears and trying to fix it. And then I start recording, and we're on a roll. Then the afternoon sun comes in, and I had not adjusted the blinds properly. So the dark shadow comes over.
Phantom of the Opera.
I ignore halfway through the interview because this is Tana Amen. I can't ask her to come back because there's a shadow over my face. So that's kind of that fun. It's a little bit embarrassing in the moment, but you look back and you laugh because those are the mistakes that are shaping me and that are preparing me and that are helping build that confidence.
And I think it's a great model for our community. I mean, because like part of the message in our community is, don't be afraid to fail, jump and build your wings, do it afraid. You need a result in order to improve a result, right? I mean, that's kind of the motto we all live by, right?
Yes,
Exactly.
I am living proof of that model. Jump and build your wings way down.
So who's on the wish list? Who haven't you gotten that you would like to get? Because I could think of a couple that you
we got to go for Oprah though, right? First, we gotta get Oprah.
We got it. Yeah. I don't know if
Andy,
Oprah could hold her own against
No,
Regina.
this
Jason
is
though.
got me. Now I'm going to have to produce her in 2022. Oh my God.
That's right.
How do I do that? There's a gal that lives here in Atlanta. She's actually a billionaire. Her name is Sarah Blakeney. She invented Spanx.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I follow her on
She's
LinkedIn
great.
and Instagram, and she's got this life and she's got this energy and this enthusiasm. And I really like her. And so a couple of times I've sent that little contact message form and I haven't gotten a response. And there are a couple of people I'm working on now. There's actually, I don't know, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it because if she comes, she comes. If she doesn't, she doesn't. There's a great show on the Learning Channel called Doubling Down with the Doricos. And this woman has 14 children.
Oh my.
Never took an infertility medication, all natural. She is the smallest, tiniest holly frame looking of a woman. Has given birth to 14 children. And again, this one night, Roger and I are just, laying in bed, we're flipping the TV, and we see this family of 14 children, nothing but love, nothing but energy and kindness and warmth. And they live in the Vegas area, and I've tried to, I shouldn't say this, I've tried to track them down there a little bit.
You're stalking them.
What street are they on? We have to, when we go to Vegas next time, we have to find their house. I did actually reach out to them, and I finally got a maybe, or we'll call you and we'll see. So I'm excited by that because 14 children, are you kidding me? And they are
That's incredible.
they take their kids out in public, and they're the nicest, sweetest, calmest group. They love each other. I'm like, I have to talk to this lady. I have to.
Yeah.
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 Hey,
Have you
Regina,
ever had go ahead, Andy?
Regina, an idea I just had. Do you remember the last time we were in a room together and sitting next to each other, we were both bawling our eyes out at IMC listening to Jamie Kern's Lima.
She's on the short list, Andy. I am
Yes.
going to L2L. And by the time this show airs, maybe I would have connected with her. Jamie Kern Lima, who is Andy was crying before I was crying, weren't you, Andy?
Andy.
I was. High eyes together.
And some people watching this show might have been in the room or at least watched her. Jamie Kern Lima, she is definitely a person for me to get for next year. Talk about a story, Andy. Sold her cosmetics company for $1.2 billion to L'Oreal. Company she and her husband started in their living room, right, Andy? 3
Yep.
years, no money, almost broke when this
Yep.
deal.
Unreal.
Everybody saying no. Everybody saying no after no after no.
No answer. No.
Just kept being persistent. She just knew that she had the solution to so many women's skin problems.
It was unreal. And I think there wasn't a dry eye in the house when
No.
she talked about when she finally had the nerve to ask the gentleman who she thought was going to invest. She said, "Can I just ask you why you decided not to invest in my company?" And he said, "Do you want me to be honest?" And we were all in the room like, at the same time, you could hear everybody in the room at IMC,
Yeah.
what's he gonna say? And he said, "Nobody will buy cosmetics from someone that looks like you." And I am bawling. Andy and I
Wow.
could not keep it together any longer. And so she would be on the list. There's several women on the list, and it would be fun to redo our Empowered Women group. Holly, you ladies that kind of hold the fort down in
Yes.
Florida, that would be fun. That was my first interview, actually, was with all the
I
ladies.
remember that.
I remember that.
That was great.
Forget, I was like so nervous, I was falling apart.
And while the empowered women, of our team have grown, I mean, like we were just talking because now we're in our new studio, we're watching, Kiona and Megan who have, and Andrew put everything in, but Kiona and Megan have like taken, they're amazing at what they're able to do technically. I mean, they've figured it out, right? They didn't know how to do any of the lights, the cameras, the action, the zoom, all the teleprompters, all the kind of stuff and they just, they jumped in with that empowered living spirit and said, we'll figure it out. We don't know. We're not going to break anything. So
Exactly. I would
Let's
love
go.
to talk to them and have that group on a show because
yeah,
their lives have changed. Right before we hit record, Holly and I, we were chatting. And I said, "Can you believe that interview that I did with all of you?" I mean, were there like 7 or 8 of us standing up
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
They said, "Can you believe that was a year ago last week?" That was like,
wow, no way.
Yes.
That did, wow. It seems like so much has
A
just gone on. A lifetime has gone on. Is there anybody in politics that you would want to have? Is there anybody?
That could be dicey. I got close to talking politics once because I had a gal on that I met through the John Maxwell team, Adrienne Ross, so smart, just fun and smart and high spirited. And I remember asking this to Heather because we were going to mention what she does for a living, of course. And she's the head editor for Breitbart, which is
wow.
the largest conservative online platform. And I said it would be incomplete for us not to mention it. We're not going to talk politics. I said, but we have to mention it. And so Heather's like, sure, of course you can. And of course, there's no pushback or anything because all we did was mention that she's the head editor for Breitbart.
Wow.
I
That's
know.
amazing.
Right? And they're just the biggest online conservative presence. And so for politics, it would be great to have people on from either side.
Because I think you could talk. I think you could talk the relationship of politics without talking the concepts, right? You don't have to talk about the issues, but it's fascinating because on both sides, both left and right, there are some really dynamic women who are leading an agenda. Whether you agree with the agenda or not, you've got to respect. You've got to respect the way they're pursuing living their principles, their values, their dream, their mission.
Exactly. I think we can handle that here in Empowered Living.
Of course.
Whether you agree or disagree, that we can ask people what their thoughts are on the issues and how they're leading, what they're learning, and that would be fine. I would love to, either side.
In our results mastermind, we have 4 women who are all from Africa. And I've had this philosophy for probably the last, 5 to 7 years. The world is in many ways a mess. And I really think it's going to be women who get the world back on track. I really do. I think it's going to be women. And I think it's going to be women from the continent of Africa and the countries of Africa. I think when you look at how just the growth of micro lending, right, which is a fascinating concept, right, and then in every one of those cases, those women who have taken a micro loan, they've not only gone on to grow whatever it was that they were done, they have reproduced themselves in their village. It's incredible. I just think that that part of the world and women in that part of the world in particular, when you think of the challenges historically that they've had, and now as they're coming in, I think you start getting women leading African countries. I think it could change the world.
And I think you're absolutely right. I've had a chance to speak to some women that, although they live here in the U.S. now, Ndidi is one of them.
Oh my, amazing! Like who would like you? Because I always, whenever I mention her, I always say Dr. Ndidi, because I want people to realize, because you would meet her, you would never know.
You would never, ever know. I sat next to her the first day of the mastermind group. I would not have known she was a doctor unless Megan had not sent us that sheet. So had it not been for that sheet, I never would have suspected that at all. She is one of the most humble and sweet and just kind-hearted women. And she was one of those shows for me that just was so much fun because she was so enthusiastic about everything. She joins the John Maxwell team. It's the best time ever. She comes to Empowered Living. It's the best time ever. Everything. Ndidi was just, I was smiling the entire time I was with her. So I think that you're right about where the women leadership that's really going to the world and get it back on track. I think that culture, that group of women that just, Falaki. I mean, I got to speak to Falaki.
Dr. Falaki. I mean, she's amazing. I remember a story Falaki told me that she was on an airplane. And of course, over the thing, is there a doctor on board? And she gets up and the stewardess thinks that she's joking around because she jokes about anything. And like, she had to like show her ID that she is like a resident ER trauma doctor.
In the conversation I'm having with her, she talked about her own fears and what she was going through at the beginning of the pandemic as an emergency room physician, how that mask sort of limited the way that she would normally interact with patients and her colleagues.
Yeah.
And just those early days of COVID. And she was so calming as a guest. I thought, oh my gosh, with Falaki, I don't even know what's going to happen. I don't know if I can keep it together. And she was just so on point. And in the true spirit of Falaki and BC, as we know, they have an acronym for everything. And she broke down her acronym for mask. And it was just, I think that's where the next group of strong women leadership, they're coming from Africa, I'm sure, as well as other places. But Dr. Falaki, Dr. Ndidi, and so many others, they've been wonderful.
You look at Mfon, you look at BC, as you mentioned, Abrifia, Olive Pennington. I mean, all of these have roots back to Africa. And as they're going throughout the world, I'm telling you, I really think that, it will be empowered women who change the world. And what you are doing, Regina, is just, well, you're a blessing to me because, my vision for empowered living was that we would get, people who would step forward, who would take ownership of the community. Because I don't want this to be this is not the Paul Martinelli platform. I don't want it to be. I really don't want it to be. I keep telling Andy, I want the community to take it over and run, take it over and run. I'll fund it. But and you were really the first person to step in and do a true empowered living show, right? We had the Black Entrepreneurs on Institute, but that's kind of their show. It's on our platform, which is right on. We want that too. Yeah. But you stepped in and did the first, I'll do a branded show for empowered living, and you have done it with excellence. And I just am forever indebted to you. You are amazing. Thank you so much for what you've done for me, for this community, for everybody who's had the opportunity to be interviewed, and everybody who's had the opportunity to watch the show.
Yeah. It's a high honor. It's a privilege to hold the space, to have these women come and share, to either have a good time with them or to have a laugh with them, because I'm up for either. I'll cry with you, I'll laugh with you. It's no problem. And I'm blessed. I'm blessed to do this. And I'm blessed to have the three of you now be friends and be a real part of my life. Andy Hall, there's no way that I'd be sitting here without you, my friend. There's just no way.
Thank you, Regina. It's just an honor and privilege to be your friend and be part of this with you. So thank you so much for having me on today and for helping me part of your dream as well. Thank you. It's a real pleasure.
Oh, it's beautiful to have you here. That face got me through this moment. And Paul and Holly, there are no words for what the two of you have brought to my life and what you mean to me. So I am looking forward to an amazing year ahead.
Well, we cannot wait to see the shows of 2022. They're going to be epic. So thank you, Regina. Thank you, everybody. And look, if you've got somebody, if you know an empowered woman, an empowered woman who should be on this show, make sure, put them in the comments or reach out to myself or Holly or Andy or Regina, and let's make 2022 just packed full of the best guests we could have.
Oh, thanks so much, Paul. Thanks, Holly. Thanks, Andy. Thanks everyone for being here today. Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye-bye.